Hello, my name is Dan Humberg and I represent Harvest Fires, harvestfires.com and Firestop kits for combine harvesters. If you're watching this, you're probably exploring the installation of a kit on one of two models. This video will assist with the preparation of the tin for Case model 8010. It'll also fit the Case model 8120 prior to the model 11 year. So anything that's a 8120 prior to model 11 year or an 8010. This is the video that shows you how to fold or bend the tin set that encloses the exhaust manifold and the turbocharger on those combines. Before we begin demonstrating this or showing you how to do it, I always give a cautionary statement that while the Firestop kits are very effective at stopping the endemic fires that occur or the endemic smolders that occur in volatile crops like sunflowers, this kit and the Firestop kits are designed to stop the fires that ignite at the exhaust system, the turbocharger, the exhaust manifold, the first piece of the exhaust pipe, all the way up to the muffler. The kit does not stop fires from other sources such as hot bearings or a failing alternator or sparks that might occur from a rock or any other source that is hot enough to cause dust to ignite or represents an ignition source, an electrical short or any of those sources. This kit has nothing to do with those. This protects against the exhaust system, which is where the research indicates that the vast majority of the smolders that you experience start at the exhaust manifold of the turbocharger. So having said that, I want to show you how to fold the tin and how to prepare it for installation on your combine. Okay, you're looking down at my bench here, and I've got a set of tin that I've already folded or bent. But I'm going to show you which direction the bends go and some pointers as to how to do that effectively and make sure that it works for you. And then we're going to assemble the tin step by step as we do this so that you can see what the tin, how it assembles into a box. Then you'll have to take that tin back apart and assemble it on the combine. But I do recommend that you assemble it on the bench so that you know you have the bends in the right places. Also, by doing that, you can pre-thread the holes that the screws hold together with, and it'll be a lot easier to put it together once you get on the machine. So I strongly recommend you do that. So before we do actually begin folding the tin, I want to talk a bit about tools. The tin is cut from 24-inch galvanized steel, and it's cut with a laser, and it's now all designed on a CAD, computer-aided design system. And so the things tend to work pretty well with this. Occasionally there's a part that maybe doesn't fit on your particular combine. If there's an oil line that's moved a little bit, and you may have to make small adjustments. I nearly always have to make some small adjustments if I'm installing one of the kits. But the parts are cut with a computer, and they're pretty repeatable, and so that's really good. However, I also have had the design cut perforated lines where we want to make bends, and so most of the tin you can actually bend by hand if you wish to. Sometimes it's easier to use a tool, but the tabs and the flanges tend to want to bend where that perforated line is, and so that makes it a lot easier to get the bends correct. I use several tools here. I've got a little vice grip sheet metal tool that I bought at Runnings. This wider 6-inch I think tool I bought at Harbor Freight. It's very useful for the longer ones. And then I have a tool that I use for some of the longest bends sometimes. This is just a piece of 1-inch by 1/8-inch angle iron. It's about 36 or 37 inches long, and I have a piece of 3/16 by, I think 1.5-inch strap bolted to it, level with it, so that you can slip a piece in between this, clamp the center part in the bench vise, and you can bend the piece over if you have a long flange. It makes you can also tighten up bends. If they don't bend real crisp, you can lay them over that corner and clean them up with a ball peen hammer. So this piece is just two pieces. I just got to bolt through the ends. You don't bolt it real tight because you got to slip pieces of metal in between the two, but you can put it in the bench vise and do those initial bends with this for some of those. You can also use the bend vise for some of the shorter bends if that is helpful. But I use this tool for some of the longer bends. Most of them I'll do with the smaller tools here. I also have a parallel jawed pliers that I use for bending some things that I'll show you. And I have a tin snips handy because there's sometimes something that needs bending. You can do an awful lot of this with just a small pliers, but it's really helpful to have a couple of these tools. So those are things that you might need. I'm going to set them out of the way because we've got the bends done on the tin that we're going to show here. So I'll come back in a minute and we'll start the process of bending tin. Okay, I'm going to show you how to bend each piece, and then I'll actually assemble them while we're doing this. It makes a little bit more compact video than doing two different ones. All of the screws that we hold things together with are a number 2 pan head, number 2 square drive, pan head, self-drilling, self-tapping sheet metal screw. Most if not every hole that you're going to put a screw in is actually cut by the laser, so you don't have to drill these through, but you can if you get in a place where we missed a hole or something doesn't line up. It is possible to shoot these through the tin as they are. They're number 2 square drives, so you need some square drive bits. I use a short one for an awful lot of this in a drill driver. I also have a couple of extensions that we can use, or longer ones. I also have one that I made that's about it's about 10 or 11 or 12 inches long, that is made from a piece of electric fence rod, but it's drilled on the end and just a short one of these small bits pressed in there and epoxied in, and that makes for one that occasionally there's a screw in the assembly on the machine that you can't reach with shorter ones, and so this will get in from a distance. I also will provide with the kit that you buy a stubby screwdriver. It'll either be wooden handled or aluminum handled like this with a short bit in it so that you can get in tight places where you can't get a regular tool in and put them together. So we'll use that. So let's start the process. Again, this is an 8010 or an 8120 prior to the Model 11 year. The first piece is piece number 1, and yours should have a number cut through. This time the laser cutter had something shut off, so it shut off the character cutting, but it should have a character and a number and an underscore to show which way is up for that number. This is the largest piece in the tin kit in terms of length. It goes over the top of the exhaust manifold. It has, we're looking down on top of it. This would be the engine block here, and the exhaust manifold is underneath this piece. So we have a long flange here. This whole piece I would call a flange that's bent up from this. And so looking at this, get yourself oriented. We've got this cutout here. That's going to be where the air enters later. I've got 2 keyhole cutouts here. They are both facing open that direction, and that's going to be, this is the radiator direction on your combine. That's the opposite end from the downstream end of the engine. So I've got this piece, and I've got this long flange, and I've bent that flange up 90 degrees. Again, I did this with that angle iron tool, and that makes it very neat, pretty clean, but you can actually do it with this kind of a tool, doing it in sections. It's just that you get some wrinkles in there, which you can then actually straighten out by bending it with your fingers, because it's pretty pliable or pretty ductile material. But this makes for a nice clean bend, so if you have the time and want to use that angle iron type tool, that works well for that. So that flange bends up with the keyholes facing this way. Either way, the keyholes are facing that way, and the flange here bends up. I push those keyholes up from the bottom up a little bit. They should be cut by the laser so that you can just push them up. Those are places where we're going to let air get out of the box, and we can force it to go down to this end and come out, force it down to go to this end and come out and flush the box with some fresh air. Now there are other flanges all around the edge of this. There's one here, a small one, one here, one along here, and again all around here. These are all 1-inch flanges, and this piece of it, when it's flat, you just have the dotted lines of the perforation cuts here. So all of these other flanges, with the exception of this one, bend down the opposite direction you bent the long one. So I bent them down using hand tools or my hands. There's one where I bent it in 2 steps with a narrower tool, and there's a little crinkle here, but that doesn't matter, you can straighten it out. So all of those flanges are bent down. The exception to that is the center one, which I didn't bend before. I'm just going to grip that with this. I'm going to bend it up, but only about 10 or 15 degrees. that'll come in play later when we do the assembly. So that's part number one. Long flange bent up with the two looking down at the top of it like this. All the other flanges except this one bent down 90 degrees, and then this one's bent up about probably 15 degrees, maybe 20. We'll adjust it later. So piece number one. Piece number two. Now mine are numbered with a magic marker here because the guy that did the laser cutting for me cut them that way, or marked them when he took them off, which he may do when he cuts it for you too. But if he doesn't, there should be a number on this that's cut through with the laser. And I don't see it on this one, meaning it didn't get cut with the laser, but I'll try to make sure it does on your kit. This piece, you're looking down on it, kind of like we did the other one. It aligns with this end of this one. They should be the same shape when we get done like this, but we're looking down on this one, and I've got the keyhole facing the same direction, facing this way, and I pushed that one down rather than bending it up. I pushed that one down because that's going to dump air out the bottom of the box. And then the flanges all the way around this edge, this one, this one, this one, I bent up 90 degrees. Now we're going to take this tool and I'm going to bend this one down 90 degrees, this little narrow one down 90 degrees, and this one down 90 degrees. I forgot to do that before, but that's a step we need to do. You can tweak them by hand, although those narrow ones are easier to do with a mechanical tool like a pliers or a sheet metal tool. Those are actually going to be stops to keep it in place on the right underneath that exhaust manifold. So that's piece number two. Looking at it in this configuration, it's got 4 holes here, keyhole that opens downward and faces this way. I got tabs around the edge that bend up 90 degrees. Piece number two. Piece number three is the other end, the bottom piece on the other end here, so it goes underneath piece number one like this. They'll be spaced apart a little ways, and it's very much like piece number two. I've already bent these tabs, these 2 tabs down where the perforations are here. The other tabs around the perimeter, this long one and the 2 on the ends, I've bent up 90 degrees. The keyhole you push down and it points out here, and it will dump a little bit of air out from underneath the right-hand end of the manifold. This tab on this end gets just the slightest bend up from this face. So the others, these tabs bent up 90, this one gets bent up just a little bit because it's going to slide in on top of this one. They should line up like this, and the screw holes there will line up. So that's piece number three, and that will go under the right end of the manifold like that. Piece number four. This is piece number 4. I've got a number on it here it's written with a magic marker. You should have one cut through somewhere, probably down on this flange right here. I can see the underscore, but there's no number, but it should be number 4. This one is kind of a complicated one, but this is going to go over the top of your turbocharger bearing, and this flat face is going to go up against the compressor from your turbocharger. The exhaust turbine the cast iron exhaust turbine is going to be under here, and this is going to be in between. So this piece is cut out to go over that bearing in between. The bends we need to make are this flange up in front, big square one, about 2 inches square, bends 90 degrees. If we're looking down at the piece like this, that flange gets bent up towards the camera. All the other flanges, this one, this one, this one, this one, get bent away from this face or down. So 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges bent down, one big square flange bent up 90 degrees. The other thing I've done with this piece that you'll need to probably do as well is to take a pliers of some kind, and there's an opening cut here for it's the oil line that goes to the turbocharger bearing. And I always take the metal around that, and there's some little spoke cuts around there. The laser should have cut those for you. And I bend just like 1/8 of an inch of this out 90 degrees all the way around. These I bent in because the line is actually headed through here like my finger at an angle. And these others I bent out. But I bend them out because I don't want a sharp edge resting or touching that oil line. I don't want anything that would abrade that. This way we have a smooth bent surface, and if my finger was the oil line, if I come in contact with that, I shouldn't abrade it to the point where it would damage that line and possibly cut it and lose the oil to your turbocharger and from the engine. So cut that, or bend these out and make sure it's smooth all the way around the inside of that surface. We also would like clearance around that oil line, but that's something you'll have to check for and adjust when you get on the combine. So piece number 4, one big flange bent up from this face, 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges bent down away, and we've done some fitting or some adjusting to smooth that out. When you get on the machine, you have to split this apart to go around that oil line, slide it down, and that's how we put that on. Okay, set that aside. Piece number 5 is the bottom half of this. So these one will go on from the top and one will go on from the bottom. So this is also going to go up against the compressor. This part is going to start over underneath the exhaust turbine, and this flange bends out to the side just like the previous one did. So this is our face. Look at the shape. Here's the cutout for the bearing, and the flanges underneath bend away from this face. The big flange in front bends up perpendicular. And there's a small flange off of this flange, and that one we bend under this way so that it looks like this. That'll cover up something. You'll see it when we do the assembly on the machine, or when we assemble the parts. Now I'm going to put these two together. We have pilot holes here that line up. Large pilot holes in this one, small pilot holes in this one. In this case, the large pilot holes, they always go on top, and the screw goes through from, excuse me, I shouldn't say they go on top. The screw goes through the large pilot hole first. Sorry. I think that when we get on the machine, these are going to go through this way because it may be easier. Well, I take that back. This screw we might be able to reach from the left-hand end. I'm going to put it in as if that's the case. We'll find out when we get on the machine and do that install whether that's correct or not. But still, this will hold it together for now. I just set my clutch on this down to about 4 for these screws. I don't want to strip them out. This one I'm going to shoot through from the inside because I don't think that we can reach it from the outside. The compressor is in the way here, so I'll put this one through from this side. Okay, I won't put this one in right now, but you might want to pre-thread that hole too in case you're able to reach that from this side or one side or the other. There are some holes on here that you may not be able to reach when you do the assembly. But those two parts are together, and now we essentially have a double flange or big flange here that will cover up something later. Parts 4 and 5. Parts 6 and 7. 6 is the top right-hand side of the exhaust turbine. So it's going to go just like this. These two should be kind of mirror images of each other when you're done. This one goes outside the turbine on this side. This one goes on this side of the exhaust turbine. The exhaust turbine would be in the middle. So this one's like the other one, except everything bends the opposite way. You're looking at a surface here with these holes and straight edge here, and this is the exhaust pipe that comes out of the exhaust turbine there. And so I have a small flange here that I've bent out up towards the camera 90 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges that bend down away from the surface 90 degrees. So that's that piece. Piece number 6. Again, look at it. Stop the video if you need to get oriented. See how the flanges bend. They're all 90-degree bends. This is the bottom half of this. These are going to go together like this. And this is the mirror image of the other side. And so again, I'm looking at this face. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges bent down away, and one flange, the front one, this is where the number will be cut on this one, it looks like, and that one is bent up from this surface. And so we can assemble this pair too. Now I'm going to lay this one over the top and put screws in there. Okay, there's another screw here that you could put on, but you may not need that one. In fact, there may be something that interferes with it here, so we won't worry about that one for now. So those two pieces are assembled. We can go to number 9. Got 9 and 10 here. Number 9 is going to go. It's going to join these things together when we get started with it. Anyway, look at the piece. You'll have a flat piece that looks mostly like this, or obviously flat. But notice where this cutout is. And here's a keyhole. We're going to lift that one out towards us here with this cutout over here on this side. And then I'm going to bend. Actually, the first bend I make when I do this is this little flange on the edge. And before I do that, this one will fit a little better if we cut a little notch out here. Just cut this little tab off that's on the end here, just cut about 1/2 inch of that out. I've done that already on this one. So we cut that out, and then I took the pliers and bent that 1/4 inch. And it doesn't have to go 90. That could go about 45 degrees. It dips into a little recess in the block and keeps dust from getting underneath there. Then these other two bends are bent. That one is bent out this way, 45 degrees. These two bends are each about 45 degrees away from this top surface. So that one down 45, this one down 45, gives us a total of 90 degrees on that. And so now I can assemble that. I'm going to bring piece number 1 back up on the bench. And the holes should line up because, again, they were generated with a computer. It looks to me like there may be a missing pilot hole here. That means it may be missing in the computer model. You can still shoot a screw through it if you need to. I'm going to put some screws in here. I'm not going to put them all in because I don't want to waste your time doing that. You know how to put screws in. That was piece 1 to piece number 9. Now I can take number 2, though. That's the bottom piece for this. The box is in the bottom, and it should also line up. Okay, that's piece number 9. Piece number 10 is the same kind of piece. It goes on over here. And you may have to adjust the bends a little bit to fit this just right. I overbent it a little bit. There, that's about right. I'll run this on here, and then we'll speed it up when you do it. I'm going to put those two in, then I'm going to put this one in. What I want to point out, though, is that as I put this in, I'm going to slip this on top like this so that the large pilot hole is underneath here, and we can screw that together. That's important for later assembly. Okay, I'm going to come back and put one screw in here to hold the bottom parts of this together. That's one where you're going to have to reach underneath with that little screwdriver when you actually do the installation on the machine, but for now we can shoot these in. So now we have a kind of a box that will enclose the exhaust manifold against the machine, against the combine block. We've got bolt holes here that we can use with holes that are available on the block, and I'll show you some other things later. Now I've got these pieces that went on the left and right sides of of the manifold or of the exhaust turbine. Okay, I'm back here. I'd like to put this piece on here, but it appears that I've got screw holes that didn't get built into the computer model for this. This piece goes right here, and this flange should butt up against the other one or come very, very close to that so that it's a continuous path across here. There will be a piece that goes wraps around here and ties this all together. But if you should get a kit that has that, you know, is missing a hole or two like that, I hope not. I'll try to make sure that you don't get that occurring. But if you should, you can always put a hole in where you need to. So in my case, with this lined up where I want it, I'm going to put a mark on here with my Sharpie. Actually about 3 or 4 of them. And now I could come back and drill or punch those holes. 1/8 of an inch or 7/64 bit would be what I would use probably to drill that. You can also put them through with the screw itself. In this position, I've got a spring-loaded center punch, or you could use a center punch. I'm just going to punch these. All right, I just used one of the screws, the self-drilling screws in my drill. After having center punched those holes that I marked, I just shot screws through as a way of drilling those holes. Now I'll take a screw and actually put it on here. All right, that's those 2 pieces mounted on there. Next, we're going to go to piece number, this was piece, well, we got up to piece 10, I think, here, and then we assembled these side pieces. Next one is number 11. This is the part number 11. Number, again, is missing, but it's marked on here with a Sharpie. It has a single 90-degree bend in it. I'm not sure if it matters which way you bend it. It's kind of symmetrical. Piece has a slot here. That's for a bolt to hold this, help this flange hold the piece onto the engine block. I'm going to slide it down this direction. These 4 holes down at this end on the bottom, the piece underneath the exhaust manifold will match up to those 4 holes. And you can actually probably put this piece on before you do the assembly on the combine. I think you can get it in place. Otherwise, you can do it once you're on the machine or reach underneath and do it, but you can't see what you're doing as well. So if you can put it on now, it's better. I'm putting 2 screws in. You'll put all 4 in. That piece now will go up against the engine block, and there's a spot underneath the left-hand side of the manifold. There's a raised boss that's flat on top and tapped. It'll take an 8mm bolt, and so we can put a bolt in there and pull this on tight against the block, and it'll keep the whole thing rigid. That's piece number 10. Piece number 11. Oh, maybe that's where this is. No, excuse me. That was piece number 11. This is piece number 12. That little tab that we just screwed on was piece number 11. This is number 12. It is also a tab like that, but it's a little more complicated. I got a long fold here that I did with this one. Bent that flange up so it comes flat. You bend this up 90 degrees, and then you bend this tab over 90 degrees, and then this one down 90 degrees, and it will make a kind of a sandwich-like deal there with 4 holes in it again. And it's more rigid this way because this one has to reach down farther. This one is also going to go on the bottom of the manifold cover. This one goes on the other end over here. There are 4 holes at this end, and there is another boss on the block casting that will accept an 8mm bolt. It's about 5.5 inches down underneath this, so we had to reach down to get to that. But it's available on the machine. It's not used for anything else. I'm going to screw this on just to show, but this piece you probably don't want to screw on. You want to put the screws in there, but then take it back apart. Because this long piece with this screwed onto it is almost impossible to get in place on the combine when you're there. You have to assemble these two. You have to assemble them in place on the combine. So that's going to drop down and attach this end to the block. We'll also have an 8mm bolt here and in one or both of these holes onto the block. Those are holes that are available. So now we're in piece number 8. I was not missing piece number 8. It's here. I just forgot about it. This is actually the strip that's going to wrap all the way around our turbocharger and enclose the exhaust turbine. And it's got flanges or dotted lines cut here for you to bend. I'm not going to show you doing that or do it for you right now, because in this case the laser didn't cut all the way through on these, and I'm going to have to use a bench vise to do this to do a decent job of it. So I'll sign off and bring this back bent and show it to you in a minute. All right, I'm back. I took that long strip, and it's piece number 8. There is a piece number 8. I was mistaken earlier, and I thought I was missing a piece or misnumbered them, but in fact I had not looked at the strip. So this is piece number 8. It wraps around the turbocharger. Notice you got the hole in the top. That's where our air is going to enter the enclosure. And looking at that, the first bend, well, ignore that first bend. Leave that one till last. All of these other bends are rather shallow bends, probably like 22 degrees or something like that, that bend this to make a kind of a rough octagon-like shape that goes around the turbocharger. If you can get it even close to this, what you're seeing there now, it'll fit when you get on there because the screws will pull it up tight, but you can also adjust the bends when you start putting it together. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bends that wrap this around, and then 2 bends that go the other way, and that's where we're going to attach it onto the previous assembly. There's also in the bottom, this opening is for the oil return line, the oil return line from the turbocharger to come back through. And again, the laser didn't cut these this time, but it should on yours. Little tabs here. I'm cutting them with the tin snips. They're marked with the laser, but it just didn't cut through. And now I would take this flat jawed pliers, or you can use a regular pliers, and I would bend these down, well, this way, outside of the enclosure, so that that oil line has a parallel tin surface running to it instead of the edge of the tin. Only need about 1/8 of an inch. You could end up adjusting it if that line, sometimes that line is not exactly in the same place on every combine. So if it's over by 1/4 of an inch, you could have to cut this open a little bit more. But I want you to be sure and do this. Open this up just the slightest amount so that you get a smooth face of tin against that line. This here, I'm actually going to bend that one up in. Take that back. I'm going to bend all of these down and out. There, so we've checked this, and I would mess with it a little bit more, make sure that these are smooth surfaces now all the way around here, so that that oil line, which is about the size of your thumb, comes through about 3/4 of an inch through there. We'd like clearance, but if it ever does touch that line, I don't want it to abrade it. I don't want it to cut it, so I want the smooth face of this against that. All right? So that's that piece. Now we can put it on here like this. This is the bottom of that enclosure. We got these tabs on it we're going to attach to the engine with. And this will come on here. You just have to adjust these bends a little bit. And this adjusts a little bit hard because the laser didn't cut them. If the laser's cut yours correctly, it'll be perforated and it'll bend relatively easy on those. I'd probably start here. There we go. Now, at this point, you can come around here and you need to put all of the screws in to tap the holes. I don't need to do that for right now, but I would eventually come back and put them all in. And if you put one in every third one here, it'll pull everything in line and line up the rest of the holes for you. All right, so I've put about a third of the screws in there, but it pulls that whole piece tight around there, and the rest of the screw holes line up so you can shoot screws through there. And again, you need to do all of those because you want those screw holes having had a screw run in them. Some of them are easy to get to and you wouldn't have to do that. But if there's these underneath, for instance, if you got to reach under and do that, and you're going to use this screwdriver reaching under there blind, you want that hole already tapped so that the screw goes in really easily. So I put them all in. Okay, the next two pieces we have to bend are piece number 14 and 15. Take that back, 13 and 14. So piece number 13, this is going to enclose the first part of the exhaust pipe from where it leaves the exhaust turbine up to where it makes a bend or a corner. And this piece bends into about a half of an octagon. You notice the shape that we're looking at here. And I don't have a pattern for you. You can look at this shape though, and you can approximate it, and then you can adjust those bends pretty easily on your own. But you need to get the part oriented correctly. This end has holes all around here, and this end has tabs all around. So you should be looking down at a flat part, and you want to get the notch, this notch and this end oriented like this, right here. And then you're going to bend up the two flanges on this side, bend up the two flanges on this side so that we get to that, whatever you call that shape, half of an octagon. So you get it close so it looks like it's going to fit a round tube fairly well in there, and then we can bend each of these tabs out 90 degrees. All right, so part 13. Part 14 is the mate to it. This one's even a little trickier to figure out which piece is how. All right, I'm looking at piece 14, and I was trying to figure out a way for it to tell you whether you're looking at the top of it or the bottom of it. When it's bent, it's obvious. When it's flat, it's not. It's a very symmetrical part, so it could be this way or it could be this way, and it looks almost the same. The way that you're going to tell is by looking at the width of this flange, this one that runs here. This is about 1 inch wide. The one on the back side that's going to mate up over here is just a little bit wider. So whichever one of these, notice the width of my thumb on there, and here my thumb pretty much covers up the flange. Here, not quite. This one's just a little bit wider. That's the one that mates up to this side, and so we're going to bend. This is the top then, and we're going to bend these down around this way and these down around this way. And again, you're looking for that shape that when it mates up with this one will make that octagon. Once we've bent those down, and you will have to adjust them, there's no question, and then we bend these three flanges out 90 degrees. Each one will stick out 90 degrees from its surface. Once you've done that, you can fit these two together. Like here, I got to spring this one a little bit, slide that one. The one with the larger pilot holes goes on the outside. That's the top piece here. And the holes should line up all along there. And when you do that, all of these flanges will line up in a plane. And that's going to bolt onto our exhaust turbine cover. So I'll put a couple of bolts or a couple of screws in here. All right, that's good enough for my purposes right now, but you need to put screws in those. You might avoid the end ones until last because they could come into play later. Now let's see how that fits. This is going to go on. I've got this thing laid on the block as if the bench was the engine block, and I'm bolted to it. Now I'm going to fit this on here. And this end of it is at an angle because we've got an extension that's going to go up here. So this one bolts on here, or screws on here. There's a tab that goes parallel to the bottom, the very bottom one with the that piece that had the notch cut out in this end. Should parallel the box on the bottom of the exhaust turbine cover. Okay, I got 2 screws in, and nearly every other screw hole now lines up. So I'll put a couple more to hold it in place temporarily. You need to put those all in. Some of those are easiest to put in with a long driver like this one because you can reach them from way back here. And you really will want something like that when you put it on the combine. Okay, we're left with 2 parts. That's piece 15 and piece 16. Let's start with 15. It's going to be a complicated looking piece when it's flat. It should have a number cut in it. I don't see where the number is going to be on this tab because there's an underscore here, but there's no number. So the number is going to be on that tab, and it should say 15. So that'll give us a clue here. With piece number 15, you can bend each one of these around just like this with the number 15 here. I don't know if it's going to read 15 or if it's going to be backwards, but it's this tab. And so looking at the orientation of it and this slot here, we're going to bend it around this way. So I've got, again, kind of a half a shell of octagon. And this tab will bend up about 25 degrees maybe. And this one will bend down maybe 15 degrees. That one will be a little tricky. You need a pliers or something, or that whole thing's going to bend. But this will fit around a support pipe for the exhaust pipe. So once we've done that, these you can leave open for right now. They'll actually bend down, and they're going to stand it off of the exhaust pipe. No screws or anything. They just bend down, and they should fit kind of up against the exhaust pipe and hold it, space it off of the exhaust pipe. So if we get this one bent like this, we can put it on here. I'm going to turn this sideways, and this piece is going to go on like this. This tab will match up with these screws. This edge will kind of butt up against this edge, and this tab will bend underneath here just a little bit. All right, we got that half on. The piece remaining is the other half. That one will come as a flat piece. Also, it's going to have a notch in here that fits around that support on the bottom. And if you're looking at that and it says 16 on here, the number 16 will be on this flange right here. We bend looking at this notch in this corner, but we bend the edges or the sides around into that octagon shape. I can leave these as they are for right now, and then this tab bends under or down about looks to be about 40 degrees, and these two both bend up. This one bends up about, I don't know, 50 degrees, and that one's probably closer to around 40. We get those correct, and this piece will overlap the previous one. It'll overlap here, and the screw holes will line up on this piece. Once we do that, we can also shoot some in through here to hold the two halves together. All right, so we've got the exhaust pipe comes up to here, and it's at about this point where the exhaust enters the muffler on the 8120 and the 8010. And so you can take the pliers, or this thing in this case, and we can bend these tabs down. I'm just going to start them down. They may not go all the way in 90. They may only go in part way before they encounter the exhaust pipe, but they'll keep it spaced off of that. And then there's gaps in here that allow air to flow down here and come out this end around that point. So that's actually the tin assembly for this. You need to put in the rest of the screws, tighten it all up, make sure the bends all match up okay. And then I would come back with, if I were you, I'd come back with several different colored markers. And so for instance, on this piece, I'm going to use a red one and make a mark there and a double one there. So when I'm assembling it on the combine, if I don't remember how that piece is oriented, we can just line up the marks on there. Similarly, down at this end where we aren't so sure what's what, you can use a different colored marker and make some. You can do that all you want with different colored markers. When you get on the combine, you'll be glad you did that, because it just makes assembly from a basket full of parts on there a lot easier. So go all over the kit, and wherever you have junctions of things overlapping, make some marks that help you with the assembly later on. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else we need to do on this? I don't think so. You can check all of the tabs that are cut here should be bent out a little bit, opened up just a little bit. I probably start with them about 1/8 of an inch, and they may even stay at that 1/8 of an inch. Just let the little air flow to all corners of the box and come out. We want air to go to along the manifold. We want air certainly to flow around the turbocharger, and then some of that air to funnel down along the exhaust pipe and all the way up to the muffler. We're assuming that the muffler is cool enough that it doesn't ignite dust on contact. I believe that to be the case. I can't absolutely guarantee that, but all of the evidence says that's the case, because these combines tend not to have fires once they have this kit on there. Okay, so that's the kit for the folding and assembly of the tin for an 8010 or an 8120 case if it's prior to the Model 11 year. Once again, be sure that you're careful on your machine. Even though you have this kit on there, I can't guarantee that you'll never ever have a smolder. It's just that it probably won't come from the exhaust system anymore. If you have a smolder, you're looking for a hot bearing or some other source of a spark, electrical short or something like that. So be careful with your harvest. Good luck. If you have questions about this, you can post them to me at harvestfires.com. Thank you very much.